Dr. Amanda Hayes drummed her fingers against her desk, staring at the holographic display floating above her workstation. Something wasn't right about the Voyager 9 data, but she couldn't quite put her finger on it. The Deep Space Probe had transmitted its usual packet of information from the edges of the Kuiper Belt, but there was an anomaly in the background radiation readings that made the hair on the back of her neck stand up. "Jack," she called out, not taking her eyes off the shifting patterns. "Come look at this." Dr. Jack Reynolds, her colleague of 5 years, meandered over from his home station, coffee mug in hand. "Please tell me you haven't found another asteroid that looks like Elvis." "That was one time," Amanda muttered, expanding the holographic display with a gesture. "Look at this pattern. Does it seem familiar to you?" Jack leaned in, his casual demeanor shifting as he noticed what had caught Amanda's attention. Against the backdrop of space, a crystalline structure approximately 3 kilometers in length shimmered with an internal light that seemed to pulse in a strange, almost organic rhythm. "That's not natural formation," Jack whispered, setting down his coffee. "The symmetry is too perfect." Amanda nodded, but that wasn't what had drawn her attention. "Watch the pulse pattern," she said, pulling up her neural monitoring display alongside the probe's data. The 2 wavelength patterns overlapped almost perfectly. "It's matching your brain waves." Jack's voice cracked slightly. "That's impossible. The transmission delay alone showed." "I know," Amanda interrupted, "but watch this." She closed her eyes and took a deep breath, deliberately calming herself. On the screen, the crystal's pulsing slowed in perfect synchronization. Within hours, NASA's Deep Space Communications Center was buzzing with activity. Every scientist who viewed the transmission reported the same phenomenon. The crystal's energy signature synchronized perfectly with their neural patterns, regardless of the 20-hour transmission delay from the probe's location. "It's like it's anticipating our patterns," Dr. Marcus Wong explained during the emergency briefing. "Or perhaps responding to something more fundamental than our conscious thoughts." The discovery sparked a global sensation. News networks ran constant coverage of what they dubbed the resonance crystal, while religious leaders debated its significance. But it was a junior researcher's observation that broke the case wide open. "It's not just matching our patterns," Emily Chen announced during the 3rd day of observation. "It's responding more strongly to emotional states than logical thought processes." She demonstrated by having volunteers attempt various mental exercises while observing the crystal. Mathematical calculations barely registered, but strong emotional responses, everything from joy to fear to love, created dramatic fluctuations in the crystal's energy signature. Amanda found herself working 20-hour days, fueled by coffee and the pure excitement of discovery. She and Jack led the primary research team, documenting every possible interaction between human consciousness and the alien artifact. "It has to be artificial," Jack insisted late one night as they reviewed the mounting data. "The precision of the response, the scale of the structure itself. Someone built this." "But why?" Amanda wondered, absently touching the screen where the crystal's image pulsed in harmony with her curiosity. Why create something that responds to emotions rather than mathematics or language? The answer came from an unexpected source. During a routine data review, Amanda's 4-year-old nephew Tommy wandered into the lab during a visit with her sister. Before anyone could stop him, he pointed at the crystal's image and laughed with pure childhood delight. The crystal's response was immediate and dramatic. Its entire structure blazed with light, and new patterns emerged, complex sequences that had remained hidden during all previous observations. "It's not just responding to emotions," Amanda realized, watching the new data pour in. "It's responding to genuine, unfiltered human connection. Everything we've tried has been too controlled." As she shared her revelation with the scientific community, humanity stood on the brink of understanding that their first alien contact would challenge everything they thought they knew about advanced communication. The ability to convey complex messages through pure emotion wasn't a primitive trait to be evolved past. It was the key to something far greater than they had imagined. And somewhere in the vast darkness of space, the crystal pulsed with ancient purpose, waiting for humanity to fully grasp the power of their most unique gift. Navy Lieutenant Michael Cooper stood at parade rest, trying not to fidget as the Mrizic ship descended through Earth's atmosphere. The massive vessel, shaped like an elongated diamond, moved with mathematical precision, each trajectory adjustment calculated to the microsecond. Like everything else about the Mrizics, their landing was a testament to pure logic. "Remember," Admiral Chen whispered to the assembled greeting party, "they've been studying the crystal for over 300 years. Try not to mention how quickly we made contact." Cooper nodded, but his attention was split between the landing ship and the holographic projection of the crystal floating above the nearby research station. Even from here, he could feel its subtle resonance with his thoughts. The crystal's pulses had grown stronger since the Mrizics announced their approach, almost as if it was anticipating something. The alien ship touched down with perfect precision. A moment later, Ambassador K'tal emerged, tall, gray-skinned, with multifaceted eyes that seemed to calculate everything they saw. 3 scientific advisors followed, each carrying what Cooper recognized as translation matrices from the preliminary data exchange. "We extend logical greetings," K'tal announced through their translation device. "We have come to assist with your primitive attempts to decode the resonance archive." Cooper fought back a smile as he noticed Dr. Hayes rolled her eyes behind her tablet. The crystal's pulses flickered briefly in sync with his amusement. K'tal's head snapped toward the hologram. "You are interfering with our equipment. Please cease all attempts at crystal manipulation." "We're not doing anything," Dr. Hayes explained, stepping forward. "The crystal responds to emotional states naturally. Lieutenant Cooper here was just." "Impossible," interrupted one of the Mrizic scientists. "We have spent generations developing the proper mathematical sequences to achieve basic response patterns. The archive cannot be accessed through random emotional discharge." To demonstrate their point, the Mrizic scientist activated their translation matrix. Complex mathematical formulas flowed through the air, the result of decades of research. The crystal remained still. "Perhaps," Cooper suggested, breaking protocol slightly, "you could let us demonstrate." Admiral Chen gave a subtle nod. Cooper stepped forward, took a deep breath, and did what came naturally. He opened himself to the wonder of the moment. Standing here, meeting beings from another world, feeling the potential of it all, his genuine awe and excitement flowed freely. The crystal's response was immediate and dramatic. It pulsed with bright colors, creating patterns that danced in harmony with Cooper's emotional state. The Mrizic scientists' translation devices actually sparked from the energy output. That's impossible," K'tal stammered, their logical composure cracking. "Our calculations." "Maybe it's not about calculations," Cooper offered gently, feeling sympathy for their confusion. The crystal's light shifted to a softer, more comforting pattern. "It's about connection." The demonstration continued for hours. The Mrizics watched in growing disbelief as human after human interacted with the crystal, each emotional connection producing unique but meaningful responses. But it was the arrival of a school tour group that truly shattered their worldview. 8-year-old Emily Parker, listening to her teacher explain about their alien visitors, simply waved at the crystal with a child's open-hearted friendliness. The resulting light show made the Mrizics' translation matrices completely shut down. 300 years, K'tal said quietly, multifaceted eyes fixed on the laughing child. 300 years of calculations, algorithms, and logical analysis, and your younglings achieve in moments what our greatest minds could not. Not achieve, Dr. Hayes corrected kindly. They're just being themselves. We all are. The crystal doesn't want to be decoded, it wants to be felt. As the day drew to a close, Cooper noticed something extraordinary. The Mrizic scientists had set aside their devices and were simply watching the crystal pulse in harmony with the humans around it. And in their multifaceted eyes, Cooper saw something that their logical species had perhaps forgotten. the first glimmer of wonder. The crystal's light dimmed to a gentle glow, like a satisfied sigh. Humanity's first lesson to the galaxy was beginning. Sometimes the most powerful messages don't need to be decoded. They just need to be felt. Captain Emma Sullivan knew she was about to end her career. 20 years in the Space Force, and she was about to throw it all away on a hunch. But watching the diplomatic delegation argue in circles about proper crystal interaction protocols had pushed her past her breaking point. The Arcturi's mathematical approach clearly demonstrates. One alien diplomat began. The Mrazek's calculations suggest an entirely different. Another interrupted. Our logical matrices indicate. A third chimed in. Emma removed her officer's jacket, ignored the warning look from her superior, and walked straight toward the crystal's containment chamber. Behind her, she heard Admiral Chen barking orders to stop her, but she had already keyed in her emergency override code. Captain Sullivan, stand down. The Admiral's voice echoed through the chamber. That's a direct order. With respect, sir, Emma replied, not breaking stride. Sometimes orders need to be broken. The crystal's pulsing had intensified as she approached, synchronizing with her determined heartbeat. The assembled alien diplomats fell silent, their various translation devices and logical matrices whirring as they attempted to predict her actions. The Mrazek's ambassador Kittel stepped forward, his multifaceted eyes calculating trajectories. Captain, you risk contaminating 300 years of careful scientific protocol, he warned. The archive must be approached with proper logical. Emma laughed, a genuine sound that made the crystal flash brightly. That's exactly the problem, she said, now standing directly before the massive structure. You've spent centuries trying to solve a puzzle that was never meant to be solved. She closed her eyes, remembering what Lieutenant Cooper had discovered, what the children had demonstrated. Stop thinking. Start feeling. She opened herself completely, her frustration with the diplomatic deadlock, her wonder at the crystal's beauty, her hope for what it could mean, and her deep, gut certainty that she was doing the right thing. The crystal's response was unlike anything previously recorded. Its entire structure shifted, revealing patterns within patterns, and a seam appeared along its central axis. As the assembled diplomats watched in shocked silence, a doorway materialized. Impossible, breathed Kittel. Our calculations indicated no physical access points. Because you weren't meant to calculate your way in, Emma replied softly, feeling the crystal's invitation. Taking a deep breath, she stepped through the doorway. The chamber beyond defied conventional geometry. Crystalline surfaces reflected not light, but emotions themselves. And on every surface, Emma saw records, not in any written language, but in pure emotional resonance. The successes and failures of countless species, each trying to unlock the crystal's secrets through pure logic. It's a library, she called out to the stunned observers, but not of information, of experience. She touched one of the surfaces, and a wave of alien frustration washed over her. Generation after generation of brilliant minds, all trying to solve an equation that didn't exist. As she explored further, Emma felt the crystal sharing its true purpose. It wasn't a test to separate advanced species from primitive ones. It was a reminder, placed by some ancient race that had seen the pattern repeated across the galaxy. Species would evolve, develop technology, embrace pure logic, and in doing so, lose something precious. You've all been going about this backward, Emma announced, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber. The crystal doesn't respond to emotions because they're primitive. It responds to them because they're the most advanced form of communication in existence. She felt the truth of it resonating through her entire being. Mathematics could model the universe, but emotions could experience it. Logic could solve problems, but feelings could understand them. As Emma emerged from the chamber, she saw something she never expected. The Mrazek's ambassador was crying. A single tear rolled from one multifaceted eye, and the crystal pulsed in harmony with his rediscovered ability to feel. We forgot, Kittel whispered. Somewhere in our pursuit of advancement, We forgot what it meant to simply experience. Emma smiled, knowing her career might be over. But a new chapter in galactic understanding was just beginning. The crystal pulsed warmly, like a proud teacher watching a student finally grasp a difficult lesson. "Ashley Thompson, you get back here this instant." Commander David Thompson's voice echoed through the pristine halls of Space Force Command, but his 12-year-old daughter was already 3 corridors ahead, her laughter trailing behind her. It was supposed to be a simple take-your-child-to-work day. Show her his office, maybe let her see some basic space monitoring equipment. Instead, she'd somehow slipped away during the lunch break, and his security clearance tracker showed she was headed straight for the crystal observation room. "Lieutenant Cooper," Thompson barked into his comm, "lock down Section C7 immediately. My daughter's heading your way." "Sir," Cooper's voice crackled back, unusually hesitant. "She's already here." Thompson's heart stopped. He sprinted around the corner to find the observation room's blast doors wide open. Inside, Ashley stood before the crystal's holographic projection, her small hand raised toward its shimmering surface. Every scientist and alien diplomat in the room watched in stunned silence. "Ashley, don't," Thompson started, but the words died in his throat. The crystal was changing, not just its usual pulsing response, but a complete transformation. The holographic projection expanded, filling the room with intricate patterns that seemed to dance with joy. Ashley's laugh of pure delight triggered cascading waves of light that formed themselves into images. "Dad," she whispered, eyes wide with wonder, "it's showing me how it works." The assembled scientists scrambled to record what they were seeing. The crystal was revealing its internal structure, showing connections and pathways that countless species had spent millennia trying to understand. But it wasn't displaying them as mathematical formulas or technical diagrams. It was showing them as pure emotional concepts that even a child could grasp. "The pathways," Dr. Hayes breathed, watching the display. "They're not logic gates or quantum processors. They're emotional resonance chambers. The entire structure is built to amplify and transmit pure feelings." Ashley nodded as if this was the most obvious thing in the world. "It's like a big mood ring," she said, giggling. "But it doesn't just show feelings, it helps you share them. Watch." She closed her eyes, and the crystal's light shifted to a warm, gentle glow that somehow conveyed the feeling of a mother's hug, a favorite bedtime story, the safety of home. Several of the alien diplomats actually staggered under the wave of pure, unconditional love that radiated through the room. "This is unprecedented," Ambassador Cattell declared, his translation matrix struggling to keep up with his agitated movements. "None of our most advanced scientists ever achieved this level of interaction. How is the child doing this?" "Because she's not trying to achieve anything," Thompson replied, finally understanding. He walked over and knelt beside his daughter, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. "She's just being herself." Dr. Hayes was already documenting what would become known as the Thompson Protocol, the practice of approaching the crystal with the pure, unfiltered emotional honesty of a child. No agenda, no desired outcome, just genuine openness to connection. The crystal wasn't waiting for an advanced species, Hayes explained as she worked. It was waiting for one that had managed to advance technologically while retaining its emotional core, one that could reach the stars without losing its heart. Ashley, oblivious to the historical importance of the moment, was still playing with the crystal's projections. Each of her emotional shifts created new patterns, revealing more about the ancient device's capabilities. But it was her next innocent question that truly highlighted humanity's unique perspective. "Can we teach the crystal new feelings?" she asked. "Like ones it hasn't seen before." The room fell silent. In all the records they'd discovered, in all the attempts by other species to interact with the crystal, not one had ever considered that they might have something new to teach it. The crystal's response was immediate and enthusiastic, its lights dancing with what could only be described as excitement. And in that moment, Humanity's role in the galaxy shifted. They weren't just another species discovering ancient wisdom. They were partners in an ongoing emotional evolution that would change everything. Thompson looked at his daughter with pride. Sometimes the greatest breakthroughs come not from trying harder, but from remembering how to simply be. Rachel Martinez stood before the United Nations Security Council, her FBI profiler badge replaced by the newly minted insignia of the Emotional Intelligence Agency. Behind her, a holographic display showed her star pupil, Marcus Wright, demonstrating emotional resonance techniques to a group of alien diplomats. "What you're seeing," she explained, "isn't just communication. It's the future of galactic diplomacy." On the screen, Marcus sat cross-legged before the crystal, his calm demeanor a stark contrast to the agitated movements of the Arcturian ambassador beside him. The insectoid alien's translator was spouting perfectly logical statements, but Marcus's expression showed concern. "Ambassador," he said gently, "your words say you agree to the trade terms, but you're radiating distress. The crystal doesn't lie about emotional states. Would you like to tell us what's really bothering you about this agreement?" The Arcturian's antennae twitched violently. The crystal's pulsing synchronized with the alien's hidden anxiety, making the emotional undercurrent visible to everyone in the room. After a moment's hesitation, the ambassador revealed that the trade route would pass through territory sacred to their species, something their logical matrices had deemed irrelevant to the negotiations. "This is why we need the EIA," Rachel continued, turning back to the council. In 3 minutes, Mr. Wright prevented what could have become a serious diplomatic incident, not through logical analysis or traditional negotiation, but through emotional awareness. The Security Council chambers erupted in discussion. On the screen behind her, Marcus was already helping revise the trade route, while the crystal's warm glow reflected the growing trust between human and Arcturian representatives. Ms. Martinez, the French delegate, leaned forward. "Some are concerned that this kind of emotional manipulation could be." "It's not manipulation," Rachel interrupted firmly. The crystal in the UN chamber pulsed in harmony with her conviction. "The crystal makes genuine emotions visible. You can't fake what you're feeling. That's exactly why it's so valuable." She gestured to another display showing the EIA training facility in Colorado. Hundreds of human diplomats were learning to refine their natural emotional intelligence, using the crystal's feedback to understand the subtle nuances of alien emotional expression. "We're not teaching people to manipulate emotions," she explained. "We're teaching them to understand and respect them. Every species feels. They've just forgotten how to show it." An unexpected chirp from her communicator interrupted the presentation. Marcus's face appeared, his expression urgent. "Rachel, you need to see this. The Mrezik's delegation. They're crying." The display shifted to show a group of the normally stoic aliens watching a sunset with a class of human children. Tears flowed from their multifaceted eyes as they really experienced, the simple beauty of the moment. 3 centuries of pure logic, one Mrezik's whispered, and we never once simply watched the sunset. Rachel turned back to the council, her voice soft but firm. "This is what we offer the galaxy. Not superior technology, not advanced weapons, not even traditional diplomacy. We offer the ability to feel, to connect, to experience life in all its emotional depth." The crystal's pulsing had grown stronger, resonating with the truth of her words. Around the chamber, even the most skeptical delegates found themselves affected by the pure conviction radiating from both Rachel and the ancient device. The Emotional Intelligence Agency isn't just about preventing conflicts or negotiating treaties, she concluded. It's about teaching the galaxy how to feel again. And in doing so, we're not just changing interstellar diplomacy, we're healing wounds that logic and progress left in their wake. As if to emphasize her point, the chamber's crystal projection shifted to show feeds from around the world. Human AI agents helping Mrezik's scientists rediscover wonder, teaching Arcturian diplomats to embrace intuition, showing Canturi merchants how to trust their instincts. "We're not just translators," Rachel said, her voice thick with emotion. We're remembrancers, helping ancient species rediscover what they lost in their rush to evolve beyond their hearts. The crystal pulsed one final time, its light embracing the chamber like a warm smile. In that moment, everyone present understood. Humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy would be teaching it how to feel again. James Thunder Wilson sat alone in his dimly lit office at the HFY, his prosthetic leg propped against his desk, staring at the crystal's holographic projection. 20 years as a Marine hadn't prepared him for this moment. The same instincts that had saved his unit in Damascus were now screaming at him about something much bigger. "Run that sequence again," he muttered to his AI assistant. The crystal's pulsing patterns from the last month replayed before him. To anyone else, they would look normal, beautiful even. But to Wilson, they felt like a drummer missing beats in an otherwise perfect rhythm. His comm unit chimed. "Wilson, it's Martinez. Tell me I'm not crazy. You feel it too." He straightened in his chair. Rachel Martinez never called this late unless something was wrong. "The crystal's outputs are all nominal," she said, frustration evident in her voice. "Every logical analysis says everything's fine. But it feels wrong," Wilson finished, "like hearing a heartbeat that's slightly off. The Mrizics think we're being paranoid. Their matrices show no anomalies." Rachel paused. "I'm assembling a group of our best empaths. Can you?" "Already on my way." Within an hour, the EIA's crisis room was filled with Earth's most emotionally attuned individuals. Ashley Thompson, now 16, sat next to her father, her ability to connect with the crystal having only grown stronger over the years. Marcus Wright stood by the main projection, his usual calm demeanor tensed with concern. "Close your eyes," Wilson instructed the group. "Don't think. Don't analyze. Just feel." The crystals pulsing filled the room. One by one, faces around the table grew pale. They felt it too, a wrongness in the rhythm, like a shadow falling across the sun. "It's afraid," Ashley whispered, opening her eyes. "The crystal. It's trying to warn us about something." Ambassador Kittle burst into the room, his logical composure cracking. "Your emotional disturbance is causing widespread panic. The crystal's patterns show no statistical." "With respect, Ambassador," Wilson interrupted, his voice carrying the weight of battlefield experience. "Some threats can't be measured with statistics." He limped to the main display, pointing to seemingly random fluctuations in the crystal's light. "You see chaos. I feel terror, not from us, not from any current species. This is ancient fear, recorded in the crystal's memory. Whatever caused this pattern before, it's coming back." The room erupted in argument. Logical species demanded data, emotional species felt the growing dread, and caught between them, humanity tried to bridge the gap. "Look at your own history," Wilson pressed, facing Kittle. "Why did your species turn so completely to logic? What were you running from?" The Mrizics ambassador's multifaceted eyes flickered. "Our archives speak of a great darkness, a time when emotions became dangerous. We assumed it was metaphorical. It wasn't." Ashley cut in. Her hand touched the crystal's projection, and ancient memories flooded the room. Species after species, facing something that consumed not bodies, but the very capacity to feel. A void that devoured consciousness itself. This is why the crystal was created, Wilson realized, the warrior in him recognizing a warning system when he saw one. Not to test species, but to find ones that could sense the void's return. Logic couldn't detect it then, and it can't detect it now. Rachel Martinez was already on her comm, activating global EIA protocols. Around the world, humans with heightened emotional sensitivity were reporting the same foreboding feeling. The crystal's pulses grew more urgent, like a drum beating out a warning. "How do we fight something we can't even detect with instruments?" Kittle demanded, his logical worldview crumbling. Wilson stood straighter, his military bearing returning. "The same way humanity has always faced the unknown," he said, feeling the crystal resonate with his determination. "Together, with both heart and mind. The ancient device's light seemed to strengthen with his words, as if it had waited millennia for species who could both feel the threat and have the strength to face it. The drumbeat of doom was sounding. But this time, the galaxy wasn't defenseless. This time, it had humanity's emotional courage to light the way. Admiral Kelly Parker stood on the bridge of the U.S. Hope, Earth's first emotional resonance amplification vessel. The ship's heart was a massive crystal fragment, synchronized with its parent structure in the Kuiper Belt. Around her, hundreds of emotional sensitives from every nation on Earth worked in perfect harmony. The void crosses the Pluto threshold in 30 minutes, Lieutenant Cooper reported, his voice tight. The main screen showed the approaching darkness, a perfect absence of everything, even space itself. Status of the emotional broadcast network, Parker demanded. 7 billion humans online, Rachel Martinez replied from her station. Every crystal fragment worldwide is synchronized. The AIA has never attempted emotional amplification on this scale. The void had proved immune to every conventional weapon. Antimatter torpedoes passed through it harmlessly. Quantum disruptors had no effect. Even the Mrizix's most advanced logical countermeasures dissipated uselessly against its surface. Ambassador Kitol's ship is hailing, Marcus Wright announced from communications. The Mrazix ambassador's face appeared on screen, his usual logical demeanor stripped away by fear. Admiral, our calculations suggest the void will reach Earth in approximately. We're done with calculations, Parker interrupted. Begin Operation Resonance. Now. Across the planet, humanity joined in an unprecedented emotional broadcast. Parents held their children close, lovers embraced, friends clasped hands. Every genuine human feeling, love, hope, fear, determination, joy, even anger, flowed into the crystal network. On the Hope's bridge, Ashley Thompson sat in the central resonance chamber, her now legendary connection with the crystal stronger than ever. I can feel them, she whispered. Everyone. Everything. The ship's crystal fragment blazed with light, amplifying the combined emotional energy of humanity. The void's approach slowed, then stopped. It's working, Wilson reported from Tactical, his warrior's instincts reading the battle. But it's not enough. We need more, Parker finished. She keyed the global comm. This is Admiral Parker to all species. We've spent years teaching you to feel again. Now we need your help. Remember who you were before logic. Remember how to feel. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, across the galaxy, ancient species began to remember. Mrizix shed tears of joy. Archery hives hummed with long-forgotten songs of love. Cantori priests embraced emotions they had buried for millennia. The crystal network blazed brighter, channeling the emotional awakening of an entire galaxy. Ashley gasped as she felt the power flow through her. The void, she called out. It's not just stopping, it's retreating. But victory came with a price. The crystal network was never designed to channel this much emotional energy. Fractures appeared in the Hope's fragment. We have to shut it down, Martins warned. The entire network is overloading. Parker gripped her command chair. No, we push through. The void's almost gone. We just need love, Ashley said simply. She stood in the resonance chamber, tears streaming down her face. Not just feeling it, being it. She reached out to the crystal, offering not just her emotions, but her entire being. The network stabilized, finding a new frequency in her unconditional surrender to the moment. Across Earth, people understood instinctively what was needed. Parents' love for their children, soldiers' love for their comrades, humanity's love for life itself, pure, unconditional, and absolute, flowed through the network. The void didn't just retreat. It dissolved, consumed by the one force it could never comprehend. The power of conscious beings choosing love over fear, connection over isolation, feeling over emptiness. When it was over, the crystal network pulsed with a new rhythm. Not just the ancient warning system it had been, but something more. a living record of how the galaxy's species had finally reunited heart and mind. Admiral Parker helped Ashley from the resonance chamber. "I never knew," the girl whispered, "that we could feel so much." "That's humanity's gift," Parker replied, watching the restored stars shine where the void had been. "Not just feeling emotions, but choosing them. Even in our darkest hour, we choose to love." The Hope's crystal fragment hummed in agreement, its light a promise that the galaxy would never forget this lesson. The most powerful force in existence isn't logic, or physics, or even the void itself. It's the simple, unshakable choice to remain open-hearted in the face of darkness. Dr. William Nash stood before the crystalline monument that had replaced the original artifact, its surface etched with the emotional imprints of thousands of species. 10 years had passed since Operation Resonance, and the galaxy had changed in ways no one could have predicted. "Your theory was correct all along," Ambassador Kittle said, approaching with a grace that would have been impossible in his purely logical days. Emotional intelligence wasn't a primitive trait to be evolved past. It was the next step forward. Nash smiled, watching a group of young Razix children playing with human kids in the monument's garden. They were using the crystal fragments to share feelings of joy and wonder, their laughter a symphony that made the memorial pulse with light. "We almost lost it all," Nash replied, touching the crystal's surface. "Every species in the galaxy, racing to evolve beyond their hearts. If the void hadn't returned when it did. If humanity hadn't remembered what we'd all forgotten," Kittle finished. The monument chamber filled with delegates from across the galaxy, gathering for the 10th anniversary of what historians now call the emotional renaissance. Rachel Martinez, her hair now streaked with silver, took the podium. 10 years ago, she began, we faced an enemy that couldn't be defeated by weapons or logic. The void wasn't just a threat to our existence, it was the physical manifestation of what we'd been doing to ourselves for millennia. The crystal pulsed in harmony with her words, projecting images of the transformation. Archery hives now sang with emotional poetry. Cantori merchants traded in trust and intuition as much as goods. Even the most logical species had rediscovered the power of their feelings. Ashley Thompson, now a professor at the Galactic Academy of Emotional Sciences, stepped forward with her father. Commander Thompson's uniform bore the new insignia of the Emotional Defense Force, a crystal heart wreathed in stars. The ancient species who created the first crystal, Ashley explained, didn't leave it as a warning system. They left it as a reminder. A reminder that true advancement isn't measured in technology or logical processing power, but in our capacity to feel, to connect, to love. The monument's surface rippled, displaying the countless emotional breakthroughs of the past decade. James Wilson's combat trauma programs, helping veterans across species heal through emotional resonance. Marcus Wright's diplomatic protocols, creating peace through shared feelings rather than negotiated terms. "We thought we were teaching aliens how to feel," Admiral Parker added from her place near the podium. "But they taught us something too, that emotions aren't just reactions to life. They're ways of understanding it. Every species feels differently, and in those differences, we find new ways of experiencing the universe." The crystal's light shifted, showing the new networks of emotional communication spanning the galaxy. Not just human emotions, but the unique emotional landscapes of every species, creating a tapestry of feeling that enriched them all. The void, Nash concluded, wasn't our enemy. It was our wake-up call, a reminder that the heart of progress isn't in transcending our feelings, but in fully embracing them. As if in response, the monument pulsed with a new pattern, not the ancient warning rhythm, but something more complex and beautiful. The combined emotional resonance of thousands of species, each contributing their unique way of feeling to a symphony of consciousness. In the garden, a young Razix child shared her first experience of wonder with a human boy through their crystal fragments. Their pure emotional exchange made the monument glow brighter, adding their small but perfect note to the galaxy's growing emotional harmony. "No words needed," Catel said softly, his multifaceted eyes reflecting the crystal's light. After all our logical pursuits, all our technological advancement, humanity's greatest message to the galaxy was simply this: feel. The monument's light embraced them all, human and alien, logical and emotional, each contributing to a future where progress wasn't measured in the transcendence of feelings, but in the courage to fully experience them. And somewhere, in the vast network of crystalline consciousness that now spanned the stars, the ancient species who first carved these stones felt their own emotion, pride in the children of the galaxy who had finally learned to listen not just with their minds, but with their hearts.